Ryan. Good morning to you. My name is Nicolette. I am the creator for the podcast titled You're Worthless. Read that again. The juxtaposition of your very soul. First off, I'd like to say thank you very much for saying yes to be interviewed today. And I think
My pleasure.
thank you so much. And I think when I read your profile, I feel like you are a good fit for my podcast. So my podcast essentially talks a lot about self-worth, but because I'm also coming from the background of somebody who's working in the corporate world but transitioning out, therefore I've been speaking to a lot of coaches online and
Sure.
yourself. So the goal is like to reach out to as many people as I can, because I know there are a lot of things that I don't know out there. So I've only known
Well,
so much. So yeah. So thank
well,
you.
you just described all of us, right? We only know what we know. So
Yeah.
yeah,
So I will read a bit of your introduction to our
sure.
for our listeners today, and then we can go straight into the conversation.
Excellent.
So so everyone, we have here with us today Ryan Rigterink. I hope I pronounced that correctly.
You did. Nice job.
He so he is a chief instigator and business coach, reinventing leadership, serving everyone at a higher level, and build workplaces where people actually want to work. Over the last 2 decades, he has worked with hundreds of businesses, learning the nuances of how employee relationships impact performance, and how leaders can elevate their game to build amazing culture and high performing teams. His area of expertise is in workplace transformation and how people leaders can radically improve their recruiting, leadership, and employee retention by shifting how we play the game with the people we recruit, hire, and lead. Wow, definitely something that I resonate very much. So before we go straight into business, Ryan, could you share with us what was it like growing up as Ryan Rigterink?
I had a wonderful childhood. I grew up on a centennial farm in egg. So a centennial farm is a farm that's been multi generations. It's actually existed for over 100 years.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Right.
And so I grew up in a business. So my parents were fantastic. Like, we are modeling a fair amount of what we do as parents and soon to be grandparents, off of how my parents raised us. So I had a fantastic childhood. You can imagine, on a farm, there's an endless things to do and explore. And I grew up literally working in my dad's shadow from age 3. So I grew up learning to love what I do, no matter what it is, but finding actually joy in the work. And so that was definitely modeled by my parents. And so I just had a childhood that I would love everybody to have, right? It was fun. It was a lot of like hard work, but not hard work in a sense of being like dreadful. It was
Yeah.
just, we learned how to work hard because that's what we did, right? So
Right.
so yeah, work and enjoyment of it, and empowering all of us kids to not just do what my father did in work. He got to do what he loved, right? So one of the things I grew up with was do what you love and you never work a day in your life, right? And so that's mostly true, partly not true. Obviously, you still have to work and put in the effort and all that. But there is a thread of truth in there that is actually served me well and is at the core of what I'm doing now. So yeah, fantastic childhood.
Awesome. I mean, I just want to echo to the part where you said, do what you love so you don't have to work a day in your life. I just attended a seminar last weekend, and it's like what they were saying is it's between your skills and versus your passion. You can be very good at something, but if your heart is
Yeah,
not in it, it's very unlikely that you're going to sustain it for a long period of time.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, and that's in my opinion what's broken in the recruiting process, right? We primarily
Ooh.
have a recruiting process We primarily have an entire system around recruiting and hiring and leading people that is what I call past present, right? The entire paradigm is what qualifies you to do what I want you to do as an employer now is if you've done it and you've done it well in the
Yeah,
past.
that's right.
And yet who wants to continue to do what they've already done and mastered, right? It actually doesn't take into account where someone wants to go. And so that's really the part of the macro shift, the large scale kind of high level shift in mindsets and leadership approach is that moving leaders from a past present to a future present standpoint really is part of the recipe that changes how we interact with people and engage people. And it's kind of a new approach in the sense of actually getting the data and having the depth of conversation around that, where we do and how we do it in the interview process. So.
Yeah, I really want to dive into that a bit more later in the interview. But I want to ask you, why are you so passionate about changing how work gets done?
Yeah. So I am a father of 4 who are young adults. It's such a waste, honestly. It's such a waste in most entry-level jobs that exist because they hire people with a pulse and they treat the job and the person like it's just a job. I need you to just show up and do a task, right? And it's such a waste because it completely sidesteps and doesn't elevate and bring to the forefront who that person is and who they want to become. And so it is a missing piece of leadership that I'm extremely passionate about because it doesn't dignify people with value. It just dignify. It says, as a company, my vision is what matters, not yours, or at least if it does,
so
it's
true.
very, very secondary, right? And so why I'm so passionate about it is because I see all these people, my kids and all these young professionals who are very talented and skilled. And I look at the workplace that I want them to have and I want them to actually grow up in and accelerate them and who they're becoming. There's so much of the infrastructure and the ways that we approach hiring and leading people that is just dumb. It's just dumb. Why are we doing it this way? And so that's that. I'm passionate because I love people and I want people to find not only their skills and be dignified for who they are, but to actually have their journey and what's in their heart. Not just you're not just coming to work with your hands, right? But you're coming to work with who you are, how you're designed. And so I like to break it down into 3 pieces: who you are by experience, but the missing piece especially is who you are by intention. Who do you want to be in the future? What do you want to do?
Yes.
And when we do that, it changes the game entirely about how people show up, how we interact as a leader with them. Not only is it a lot more fun because you connect with people authentically versus this superficial game that hiring and recruiting is right now.
Yeah. It's like I'm the boss, so you should follow me.
I'm super passionate because I think we're doing a massive disservice to people, and it's not the workplace that I want my kids to work in, and therefore it's not the workplace that I want any young people to work in. And I have seen so much toxic culture that churn and burn, uses people, doesn't dignify them, and there is an absolute effect on people because it is really hard not to internalize that as how we're treated and then to think of ourselves that way. You're talking about our identity and our worth, right? Self-worth. That's right.
Yes.
I have walked so many people through environments and workplace and leadership paradigms that are broken, that actually do a disservice and damage people in the process. And it's got to end. It's dumb on its face, and it's got to end. And so I'm passionate because ultimately I love people and I want a different world for this entire generation coming up. And it's completely within our control. And oh, by the way, I'm a geek and there's a ton of academic research to support what the transition and the shifts that I'm proposing, right? So from a very human level, I'm passionate about it because doggone it, like this is the way it should be done.
Yes, yes, preach. I don't. This is the so hearing you say this, it gives me that sense of hope because I too was a victim of that. So I'm a millennial, and I had the same experience. I think joining a big organization, and because this is prestigious, and I stayed, and then had my burnout, and I had to, and that really destroyed my self-esteem, my confidence, and also because I didn't know better at the time, I tied my accolades, achievements to my self-worth, which I now know
Yeah.
that I am enough regardless. And also the reason
Yeah.
why the impetus of how,
Good for you.
thank you, I started podcasting because I just want to know, am I the only one? So
You're,
hearing you say this, and I just hope that we could have, I don't know, people like you know, somewhere in Asia. I don't know. Yeah, but I know, one step at a time, right? Now that we're having
yeah.
this conversation, word will get out, and yeah, I think we're definitely
Yeah.
shifting. And Gen
Well,
Z's new generations.
I travel for professional speaking. So if you have anybody who wants to bring me
Yes.
in Asia, you know, the planes fly anywhere they point them. So
Yes, they do. They do. Yeah, you know. Yes, that is actually not. Yeah, I we can work that out. Yeah, let me let me see what I can do. Well, thank you for that, Ryan. Yeah, as I was saying, I think Gen Zs as well, they're not taking much of the crap anymore, and they're standing up like I'm not. No, no.
my generation, I think, has some harsher misjudgments about the younger generations behind us. I'm actually really not only hopeful, but really encouraged by what they're not willing to put up with anymore. And it's, to me, it's a recalibration of the value that people carry for themselves and their entire life journey. So I think
Yeah.
one of the premises around not putting up with that I don't want to wait until I retire to start living. Like I want to
Living, yeah.
enjoy my life through the entire journey. And you know, some people can view that maybe as laziness or wanting to scale back or all this sort of stuff. But I think, like, why isn't that a pretty great idea, right?
Why
I
isn't that
think,
the new norm or the standard? Like, I mean, Harvard just published an article. I think yesterday I saw it through floating around LinkedIn. Yeah, the world is gonna change the way we work. I don't know, something about workism, and then life work is no longer work life. But that's been my mantra.
yeah, that's
So
good.
yeah,
That's
yes,
good.
yes. So Ryan, what do you think that the younger generations are currently doing better than your own?
So I think they're not as sold out to the dollar. So I see a lot
Hands
of
down,
people.
yes.
I see a lot of people who are willing to take actually a pay cut to move to a different organization where they're treated well, where they connect with either the vision of their own organization, or it's an organization that is really forward thinking, like some of my clients that are actually not just about the organizational vision, but also the vision of the individual, other than just pay. That I think is a really good shift. And it's, you know, my generation was pretty much, you evaluate the job on if I can do it, if I can be successful, and how much I'm going to get paid. And that still matters. But what I see being elevated alongside of that is the culture, is how I'm treated. And so I think that's a really important factor, just because of the spillover effect that it has on the long term and even outside of work in terms of our relationships, in terms of, I mean, I personally have worked in a toxic environment, and I really didn't know the impact it was having on me until I was out of it. I could, for a period of 2 to 3 months, probably 3 months, I could physically feel like this negative energy and this toxicity leaving my body slowly over the course of 3 months.
It took me 2 years.
I had, maybe it did, and I just didn't sense it, but I had no idea the negative impact that it was having, not just on my physiology and my body's health, but on my relationship. Because I mean, this whole notion, don't take your work home, I'm like, it's a great statement, but like, come on, right? The reality is we all take our work home. Everything has an effect on everything, right? Holistic approach to where I work, I think is something that your generation is getting a lot more right. So
Yeah. And you said that keyword holistic. I think that is the word that, because when I hired my team member, like I hired them, they're Gen Zs. So and millennials at who are managers at this point, we have certain leadership style in comparison to the previous, how do I say, my higher ups, which are much older. And I would, for me, I'm more lax in the sense that I do not want to micromanage because I do not want to be micromanaged. But at the same time, we have expectations that, okay, certain deadlines, this is met, but to be honest, I do not care when or how you get it done, as long as long as it gets done. And on top of that, do not ever neglect your time with your family and your health. So this is what I'm trying to cultivate within my small team of 3. But then if I were to take a step back with the current organization that I'm in, which I'm also leaving because of, and I'm transitioning into therapy and coaching. So it's at this point, I would say it's a battle that I can't have yet to win if I were to stay even. It will take some time for this to take effect, I'd say. But conversations like this, it's I think it's very important for it to be out there, and for people to stop like putting blinds on their eyes and say, okay, because to be honest, workforce that's coming in, Gen Zs and above, and they're our next leaders.
what's that? Gen Z what?
Gen Zs and above, yeah. I mean, the alphas,
Yeah.
they are our next leaders. So, and
Yep.
consumers, it will be them as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think there's different things that motivate, and there's so you talk about generations, right? We're at a very unique point in history where we have 5 different generations in the workforce right now. That's
Yeah,
never happened
that's so
before,
true.
and so
That's so true.
you
Yeah.
know there's been a lot of research that looks at the different generations, and I don't pretend to be an expert on that, but
Oh,
beneath
yeah,
that
certainly.
is
Me
each
too.
generation does have a set of values that they carry that's slightly different, right? And so
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
leading across generations is you're dealing with something with a mindset difference of the values that are inherent within each. And I think sometimes we can look across those differences and see those differences as problems, where I think one of the heart of healthy leadership is actually viewing some of those differences as assets, right? If people have
Opportunities. Yeah.
different values, it can actually leverage an ideological diversity that can be powerful within a team. But it does take that first step of not approaching it as right and wrong, but as differences of right and left versus right and wrong, right? So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
different. It's different. It's not necessarily wrong. People is that it's not so much that the younger generation lacks motivation. It's we really haven't done a phenomenal job of as leaders knowing how to tap into that motivation.
Yeah.
Because it's
Yeah.
actually sourced different, and there's a different set of expectations and a different set of values. As a leader, our ability to adapt to that is really more the indicator of the results that we get than sort of a generational classification or label, right? So if you could tap into the motivation of any individual, it's a game changer, right? And so that's part of what we're doing, is trying to help leaders get the data to understand people, to actually partner with them, and how they actually want to be motivated, how they want to flourish in terms of where they're going, and how do we build dynamics that are healthier and more mutually beneficial. So it's not a zero-sum game where this person over here is one way and they're automatically going to be successful, and this person over here is different, not going to be successful. I think that's, we think too much in classification and not enough in how do we connect with people in terms of their design and how they're motivated, so that we can actually partner in a way that sources positive energy versus like this fear, I have to show up and do a task, which is what leads to
because
burnout.
I'm paid for this. I gotta pay my bills, and for some reason, to a certain degree, people show up because they're obligated, and I don't.
But what if they showed up and they weren't obligated? What if they weren't obligated, but
Precisely,
they were actually bought
meaning
into
that they're
their own
aligned.
future?
Yes.
Yes, that's right.
Okay. Yes. Sorry. You were saying.
No, I was just going to say it's every leader's dream, every business owner's dream to have a workforce with a self-employed mentality. But we actually, as leaders, don't create the foundations and operate in a way that actually facilitates that. And so that's what we come in and help. So.
Okay, Ryan, I am curious right now, since you said you've helped coach organizations, right? Leaders. So an ideal, or okay, maybe in the practical sense, how would you come in and take that first step and tell the leaders, this is what we're gonna do? Typically, how would you approach that?
Yeah, so the starting point, it depends on the entry point with each individual of a leader or an organization. So there's some differences, but I have an 8-week intensive coaching program that takes leaders through the existing paradigms and approaches and the new and improved paradigms and approaches throughout the entire employer and employee journey. Or they're hired to, after they leave, we are retooling every step of that journey. And so it really boils down to what are the approaches and what are the tools to help do this. So we're in some ways helping them become career coaches as managers and as leaders, but people don't have, like most leaders don't have that expertise, right? So we're layering in not just the approaches, but the tools that help empower that without somebody having to go out and get, coursework or a degree in career coaching, right?
Yeah.
So it's really about the fundamentals, and how do we then layer that into your business? So we start out really with a set of tools and approaches, and then we individualize that in terms of, okay, what's needed in your particular organization and how can we layer that in? And every company is kind of at a different point in that. And so different priorities and the order of that is different. And I like to layer it in a way that is within the rhythm and the needs of the organization, because working on something that they don't need for working on something and retooling it as it's being done in the organization. So if they've got another round of hiring, let's work on that, right before you're gonna do that. So
and have it like a pilot.
So we sequence and time it based on the organization. But from a strategy of like culture shift in the entire organization, it's not a top-down approach in the sense of forcing people. It's a top-down approach in terms of buy-in, But then like the whole idea is, how do we create a greater sense of freedom and engagement that's natural and authentic, right? So it's okay, who's interested in being a part of this? And then they see the results and all of the good that comes out of that. And instead of like this top-down declaration, it's a top-down invitation that then is proven out in a pilot that then people want to be a part of because they see all the benefits of it. And then it slowly kind of leavens the entire culture. It sort of permeates over the course of time. Yeah.
Would you say startups are easier?
Startups are easier in the sense that you're not rebuilding, you're not tearing up existing foundations in order to lay new ones. So it's easier in that sense. It's not easier in the sense that startups don't always have the same level of urgency because they're not yet broken.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and they're not yet broken in a HR sense, right?
Not yet broken. I like that. It's like we're anticipating them to be broken, but I mean, it would be it. I just had this crazy thought, like as we were talking. It would be nice to have like a person trained just like you and have it like clone in a startup, like or put there and then have you guide the founders or whoever that's leading the business and see, okay, the next 1 to 3 years, this is how I'm gonna this is my vision of the people. Yeah, right?
Absolutely.
That'd be nice.
Yeah.
And also it's perhaps it's a course that you could teach. This is just me thinking out loud. Like you could teach and then have them, this is me. I'm going to place me there.
So I've guest lectured at a couple different business colleges,
right?
To sort of test out some of these theories and get sort of cycles of feedback and input, not only from business college students, seniors and whatnot, but also from business professors. It definitely is its own area of expertise. I've gotten asked to write the textbook for it, comments from professors about it being the missing piece of leadership. So there's a potential for that. I really would like to do that. Sort of, it's not a if, it's kind of a when thing.
Yeah.
I would like to actually partner with companies for a longer period of time and with more companies so I can build out a broader data set so that when that is written and when that is rolled out in a more academic sense, that it's got more data behind it.
This can work. Yeah. Well, I'm rooting for you, Ryan.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
I mean, who knows, right? Like whoever is going to listen to this, they might just think, okay, I would like to partner with Ryan. So.
Yeah. Well, I welcome it. I'm already working with some younger and some mid-sized companies. So feel free to reach out to me if that's of interest. So
yes. So okay, we kind of nailed down some of the things just now and in our conversation. But can you help list at least a few things that are currently missing from the leadership conversation? So it's like it's out there.
So I break down 4 key paradigm shifts on leadership, and I have a whole kind of keynote on this. So I break down, I developed an innovation framework that creates essentially 4 quadrants of how to innovate and different ways to innovate. So one of those is actually in the relationship. So currently we recruit based on the past and we manage the present instead of partnering with people for a shared future. So that's one of the paradigm shifts that's broken, which I've already mentioned. There's another one that I sort of alluded to, which is, we have an entire ideology and history of leadership, specifically leading organizations, based on a paradigm that it is everybody else's job to serve the company vision. And yet what's much more powerful is actually having two visions, the vision of the organization and the vision of the individual, and finding out where those come together in shared purpose.
Yes.
And that is much more soundbite. It's actually core to a lot of the training and the retooling of the recruiting process that we do. Like that's not just a soundbite, that we provide the tools to actually do that at a very granular and personalized way. And so that's one of the things. Now, from an environmental standpoint, like a organizational culture standpoint, we typically, and even in business colleges, what's currently taught is how to manage the externals, right? How to manage the what, the where, the how, and the when. And yet we know from lots of academic research where motivation is sourced intrinsically creates passion that's much more healthier and sustainable, and actually is a buffer against burnout, is when you actually tap into the who and the why. So what's difficult, though, is the who and the why is messier. It's much more simplistic to manage the externals. But if you want to actually partner with people, we have to connect with people and lead alongside them with who they are, why they're there, and where they want to go in terms of intention.
Like hand holding, right? I mean, hand holding is like passive, but it's like a support, like a buddy.
Yeah.
How do you call that? Yeah.
Alongside. So I think most of the organizations need to be turned upside down in the sense that, the leaders are there to support their teams.
Yeah.
And their team leads are there to support their teams, right? And so instead of the pyramid this way, it really needs to be turned upside down. And when we do that, it dramatically changes the culture. It dramatically changes who people are becoming, how they show up. Like the thing about going the extra mile, putting in the extra effort, showing up with excellence, having an owner's mentality, adopting responsibility beyond only what's strictly necessary. I mean, all the things that as leaders we want to cultivate, there's actual fundamentals and foundations that need to be put in place in order to do that well.
That's a great perspective. But I'm just thinking, like, how many organizations, leaders in organizations that's willing to take that leap have it, like, it's like,
so
how do I say
challenge.
this? Releasing control in a sense.
Yes. So you could take the paradigms that I give away for free when I speak and whatnot and try and go implement those, right? But there are some significant potholes that you'll step in, and missteps are very costly in this sense, because when you're experimenting as a leader, you can have a massive exodus or a misstep that is extremely costly.
But what you're talking
about, exactly. But you're tapping into something that is really, really central about the need for a coaching program. And that is because it is not only a lot of these concepts and these processes new to most people, but they require a leadership and a psychological re-anchoring of our sense of control. And so our frame of mind of our sense of control, who we are, what's our role, how am I adding value, like what's my place, all of these things around our role as leaders are anchored to certain things. And to your point, a lot of times that's anchored to control. That's anchored to ego. That's anchored to who I have, under me. Right? And so it does require leaders to actually examine themselves in terms of what they're anchored to, not in a blame and shame way, right? But from a just an honest assessment. What am I attaching my worth and my role here to, and then part of what I do is like, okay, how can we re-anchor that to much healthier paradigms and approaches that not only free you up as a leader, but free up all of the people under your
and
care,
empower them,
that help them show up. Give yourself permission, and what happens? You model as a leader, and you innately give everybody else within your influence permission to do the same. And so, but to your point, that is an unnerving process because we are unconsciously connected to a lot of that stuff until it's brought out.
Oh,
So
yes.
it's, yeah,
Oh,
that can be,
yes.
you really do have to be a brave leader that
Yeah.
wants to do things differently and show up for your people in a way that like you genuinely love people and you want to have a
Yes.
better impact on them and your bottom line, right? So that's kind of my, like, if you want to improve your relationship with your people and produce more profit, like there is a massive ROI financially involved with this, but there's some pain in the process
Yeah.
of that leadership internalizing what we're talking about. So yeah, not every leader is willing to do it.
Yeah.
And it definitely, the chance of success is much higher if you go through it with a coach who can help, and with a group of other people who are really pursuing the same endpoint. So yeah, but
Thank
that's
you.
why I speak to crowds, and it's an invitation to the few. So
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Ryan. I think this is just it that'll just you're not going to be the only one. I know. I'm sure there are people that are out there thinking of the same thing. Like me, I'm not an expert, but I've been in the corporate world for quite a bit, so I've seen this things happening firsthand, and to millennials myself, and not even. So yeah, I fingers crossed, and we'll have to do this one step at a time. Yeah,
yeah. So one
yeah,
of the things that so there's the market factors that are at play here, right? So you already
right.
brought up one of them, and that is that the workforce, the labor force that's coming in has a different set of values, and they're unwilling to put up with some of that.
Yeah.
And so that, coupled with a labor shortage that's projected to continue to increase. So one of the things
Mm,
that it sounds kind of counterintuitive, and so stick with me for a second here, but like I'm actually very optimistic that there is a labor shortage because it's actually providing an external force. Because a lot of us don't change until like we have to, right? And so
yes,
from a
yes.
big picture
Until we have
sense,
some
it's
trauma.
providing it's
Yeah.
providing a pressure because guess what? If you have a service business and you don't have people working for you, you don't have a business.
Yes.
And so I'm optimistic because the people who are willing to actually shift their approaches and create a healthy environment that is not only more energized and more productive, but is the kind of place people want to work at, they're going to win because people will actually come work for them, or they will shift and move who they work for to come work for them. And so I think there's external dynamics right now at play that are actually helping push this to the forefront, and I'm excited for that because I want to see the change for a whole lot of reasons. So
Agree. And it's like, so if they see one company in that space doing it, and people are, they're constantly probably voted as best place to work, so naturally other organizations within the same industry would say, oh, what are they doing differently?
yeah,
Right, right, that can be that beacon of
absolutely,
light.
absolutely, yes,
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on annual reviews? You said, can we please stop annual reviews? I
yeah. I
just
think
sat for
they're
my team
appropriate.
today. And it's so ironic. I'm speaking to you about it now.
Yeah. So annual reviews. So there's all right. I've got multiple sides kind of to what I feel about that. And punitive. They're often it's how they're used is a major consideration in if they're used for creating more toxic workplace or if they're actually used well, right? So it's
Yes.
in some ways it's not the what, it's the how. But I will say that I do think it's an outdated practice in the sense that so one of the things that we help layer into companies is weekly touch points. The need for an annual review is at that point just a summary of all of the progress and the things. And so there's no secrets, there's no hidden agenda, there's no there's no getting blindsided. There's no annual review. Why not break that into much more effective, incremental
Bite size.
cycles of
Yeah.
feedback, right? Like, do you want to find out a year from now if you were doing something that could have been done a lot better? Like, that's really unproductive in my position, right? Why would we do that? So I understand the need for it from like a salary adjustment standpoint and that, but that also doesn't have to be done on a yearly cycle. It can be done. It can be done
Quarterly,
differently, right?
monthly, yeah.
I foresee annual reviews as probably going away in the near future. Not going away in the sense of not having reviews, but just actually having a rhythm actually embedded into the process of work. That's much more shorter increments, healthier. It's more growth focused. It's less punitive, although sometimes
And
there's a need for
faster
that.
reaction time, right? Because it's and you try it, it's not working, then we redo it. So if you're straying to this, you have the next review, say in a week's time or 2 weeks time or a month even. Okay, you're not really doing things right this way, so come back to this, and that's less costly as well. I mean, in terms of time and everything that comes with it.
Yes, so I think annual reviews will probably get scaled back in terms of how they're used and what all is included in that. So it'll probably still have a place, but it'll look much differently, is what I suspect will happen. So
yeah, agree. So Ryan, what is next for you?
what's next for me? I just finished an 8-week coaching intensive, and so I'm actively scheduling speaking engagements and plan on starting the next cohort of that. That's not announced yet, so that'll be coming up in the near future. But I'm also working on some AI tools for getting some of these soft skill motivational insights and offering those to hiring managers so that we actually have the data to engage in much more productive and authentic conversations in the interview process and lay some of these foundations in the relationship, employer-employee relationship, before an offer is even made.
Stepping into the company.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So some product launches, some additional cohort coaching, business coaching, leadership coaching, and then some speaking. So yeah, that's what I'm stepping into all those. So
exciting times for you.
yeah.
I think I guess I didn't ask you this. Like, where were you before you pivoted to business coaching? What?
So great question. I've worked across 4 different industries, but a good chunk of my career has been in the healthcare industry. So I've worked for a number of different organizations, doing all sorts of things from training and development, business development, coaching from a peer standpoint. And I really, COVID, when that came along, the company I worked pretty broad. Our entire division was let go, right? So I stepped into an opportunity because I developed a business incubator about 15, 17 years ago. So I've always been active in this entrepreneurial space for a long time, and ended up doing a case study, being freed up and having all kinds of time. I wrote a book. I initiated a case study with a company out in Utah, and that became the foundation of what I coined as purpose management, which I now talk about more in the sense of shared purpose. So it's a strange journey of working for different companies, but always innovating. I created several different new business models and partnership models. So innovating the business models of how we engage and create win-win-wins, creating millions of dollars for other companies on behalf of other companies. And so when COVID happened, found the opportunity to kind of lay the groundwork for that and begin to do that on my own. So, or at least for myself.
Wow. Amazing.
Yeah. So it's been an unusual but fun journey. So
fun, yeah. I'm about to enter to something of my own practice as well. So it's exciting. I don't want to term it as scary, but it's exciting. So I've always
Yes.
thought that I'm gonna stay on for about 15 more years to the C-suite and whatnot, and then at 30, I was like, okay, this is not working out. I do not agree to the culture. I have to do something. So, yeah. And I always believe in trial and error and also innovating in a sense. So, yes.
Absolutely. Yes. Embrace the scary, embrace the trial and error. It's just a part of the process, right? So
Yes.
it's not failure, it's learning. So you'll do great.
Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. And this is why I speak to a lot of people. I would love to hear what the guests are saying, what the world is saying, because sometimes you become too narrow when you're in the system for too long.
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like breaking out of the matrix.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. And the moment when you step out of it, you'll be like, how can I not see it? But I mean, everybody's
Yeah.
is in their own journey. You can't force it.
Absolutely.
They'll wake up when it's time for them to wake up. So
Yeah. Well,
we're just
culture
there
is culture is kind of that way, right? Organizational culture. We don't actually become aware of culture unless
Until,
somebody
yeah.
disrupts the culture, or we get exposure to a different culture, or we have
Yes.
some framework of understanding that helps us analyze and point it out. Otherwise, we're just in it, right?
Yeah,
And that's kind of what we know.
and often it's the bad things that would happen, the negative things to culture, and then it's a wake up call. Okay, something has to be done. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, I love the topic that you're going after on this, because self-worth is needed, because so much of those cultures do have an impact on people, and they do internalize
Yes.
it, and then they
Yes.
get stuck or defeated, and it's just unnecessary. So
Exactly. Yeah. So it's like I see how this is coming into full circle. Like, I mean, you go into a toxic culture environment, and of course, I experienced it firsthand. I felt like, am I even worthy to work? Like, where did all my 10 years of experience gone? It's like I had, I don't know, the worst imposter syndrome ever. Like when I got hired for my current job, did I rig the interview? Like that's how bad, and I had to pull myself out of it. One way is to talk and just looking within and see, okay, where am I? Something's wrong. And also, it didn't help that I was also going through my own trauma. I had to go through a divorce back in 2019, and then I threw myself into work. So it's a double whammy for me. But yeah, to
yeah,
be able
that is.
to speak here in front of people, and I mean, okay, you've done some work, Nicolette. So
Yeah, you have.
I can.
Absolutely. And that's the hard work, right?
Oh
For any
yeah.
of us, it's like we have to. The hard part is looking in the mirror, and not just viewing toxic culture out there, but viewing the toxic culture that's in here is the really hard work, right? It's the
Yes.
how do I shift my internal world so it affects my external world. So yeah,
Yes, because you are what you think you are, and innately, our reality is just a reflection of our inner self. So
yeah,
yeah.
it is the lens which we view the world through.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. I saw this one word, a quote, I think. The word is a play of the mirrors of your own reflections. So, and I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah. Um. Okay. Ryan, I'm gonna pivot to a self-worth question. I know we talk about
Okay,
this,
great.
but okay. So here's a question for you. Negative self-talk can significantly impact self-worth. So, what are the strategies can individuals use to challenge and change these destructive thought patterns?
Yeah, so I think great question. I think it's first becoming aware of it, right? I think a lot of us have these internal talk tracks that are on repeat and replay, and we're not always aware of them, right? So one of the things that I had to come to a realization was, man, Ryan, how you're talking to yourself, you would not talk to anybody else that way, right? You would not talk to your friends, you would not talk to your family. And so this healthy starting point of like, this needs to change. I'm not giving myself the same benefit of the doubt, the same kindness, the same grace, the same love that I would give other people that I care about.
Yeah.
And so starting from that point of realizing this is not good, right? So I think I think that's commonplace, right? I don't think that's unique to me. I think that's probably the norm, right? If our thoughts were projected onto an audio speaker of what we think and say to ourselves, and other people heard it, I think that our friends would confront us, right? Like, how dare you say that?
Yeah. How could you?
And so I think awareness, it's an underrated but important starting point. And then of course we have to disrupt our own patterns, our own, like actually capturing the thought by becoming aware of it, and then not partner with it, right? So we have there's this phrase by actually a theologian of centuries ago that we can how's it go? I don't want to mess it up. We can't control the birds that are flying around, but we can control if they make a nest in our hair. And so
That's a good one.
And so we have this difference of like, we can't necessarily control every passing thought that comes through our mind, but what we can do is we can not partner with that. We can not allow it to make a nest in our hair and become internalized as a part of who we are, a part of our worth. And so this whole point of taking every thought and actually intentionally agreeing or disagreeing with it, and it's like, no, that's I don't agree with that. Like, it's okay to disagree with our own thoughts.
Yeah. And you are not your thoughts, to be honest.
Right. Yeah. Well, we are and we're not, right? If we partner with it and it makes a nest in our hair, it has an impact on us, and it kind of changes up our look, right?
Yeah.
But our demeanor and all that. But yeah, to your point, that we're not, every thought that comes through our minds is not necessarily us or a part of who we want to become. So yeah.
Thank you.
That's what I would say. I'd say become aware, give yourself permission to agree or disagree, and then actually self-leadership of taking those captive and actually changing the thought and partnering with the positive side of that.
With the positive ones, yeah.
Yeah, what are your hopes and dreams? Like, there's this dynamic of if you're fully engaged with who you're becoming and your hopes and your dreams, then it leaves less room on the canvas of our thoughts for some of these toxic thoughts and negative self-talk. But some of those are just habits that we need to break too. So
yeah, and also I think
we only have so much bandwidth, right? So if I'm fully engaged in positive, it just leaves less room for me to mess up the vacuum and the negative, right? So
Yep. And also, I mean, I think you're right. The key is to be aware, and then when the thoughts do come up, okay, we have the choice to choose which one we want to identify ourselves with. But I think the smarter way is to identify with the thoughts that are helping. Number one is that's aligned to your purpose and also helping you to achieve your next goal. Well, I think that's it's a good way to put it. Yeah. Okay, so 4 more questions, Ryan. What is your heart's greatest wish?
My heart's greatest wish?
Yes.
Wow. I don't think I've ever been asked that. That's so I've been on a journey of the last 4 years where I have felt like nudged to dream bigger, Ryan, dream bigger. And so, are you familiar with BHAG, my big, hairy, audacious goal? That's a concept that's at least was in the US for a while. So my big, hairy, audacious goal is to redefine the nature of work itself so that it dignifies people with greater value and creates more value for both the individual and the organization. And I think if we do that, we create a world that people can truly thrive in, and that there's enough space for you and I, that we don't have to compete for space. There's enough for both of us. And if I can help make a dent in the universe to help that come about, that would be amazing.
That's a job well done. I mean, you've lived your purpose, right?
Yes.
Okay, so do you have a mantra that you live by?
A mantra. If I do.
Okay.
I don't know if I do. I have a lot of probably sound bites that are maybe colloquialisms or whatnot, but love God, love people. That's probably a mantra. Beyond that, it would take us in a rabbit trail of wherever that would go.
Yeah,
right?
because
So,
I'm all about going deep, spiritual as well. Okay, maybe another episode with you. So is there anything that keeps you up at night, or do you sleep well?
I sleep really, really well, but I wake up with new ideas and thoughts, and so I don't wake up from like a negative standpoint. I wake up often and have to go grab paper and a pen.
Actually,
and I'm very
write it so that I don't miss it.
I'm a visual thinker, and so I probably drive my wife a little nuts, but I have pieces of paper with the visual of the concept or of the idea or whatever, right? It's not just, I obviously type out and work with words, but I'm a visual thinker, and so a lot of the ideas come to me that way. So if I wake up, I will wake up sometimes in the middle of the night or before my alarm goes off, and it's usually because there's new further ideas or further frameworks or further whatever that's coming to mind, and I know if I don't write it down, there's a good chance I won't remember it 3 hours later
that
after
could be
I
your
sleep more.
golden egg right there.
Yeah.
That you're gonna miss.
And I think the power of our imagination and the power of our mind and what happens while we're sleeping, some call it the engagement with the divine, right? There's an aspect
Yes.
of what happens
Lucid
when we're
dreaming.
in that state. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I sleep really well, but I do wake up with ideas. So
Fantastic. So, last question, Ryan. If you could create a quote right now for you to leave to the audience listening and the world as your legacy, what would it be?
a quote:
Yes, a quote.
"You're better than you think you are,
Oh,
and never give up."
that's directly staring straight to my face. Yeah, thank you very much. I felt that. Needed that.
Excellent.
Thank you for that encouragement. Wow. Fantastic conversation, Ryan. I had a great
Yeah,
time talking to you.
Likewise, thanks for having me on. I really enjoyed the time.
I wish you well in all your endeavors. And we've connected in LinkedIn. And I think you're doing great work. Let's connect again sometime soon for a different topic.
Sounds great. Absolutely. I would love to do that. Thanks for having me on. And I really
Thank you so
love what you're going after with the theme of the podcast, and keep going for it. It's needed. So
Thank you. That means the world to me. Thank you.
absolutely. And if
All
people
right,
want to
right.
connect with me, feel free to reach out
Yeah.
on LinkedIn or Facebook. You can also find me at leadersops.com. So feel free to reach out if any of this resonated. Would love to have conversations with those who want to be a part of this change. So
Yes. I'm gonna include your website in the caption when this airs.
excellent. Appreciate it.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ryan.
Well,
See you.
thanks for having me on.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.
Take care. I only know Michigan. So, I mean, I've never been to the US, but yeah, I've heard of, yes, Michigan. Yes. So, if
Yes.
this is the state, which one is it? Like, this is west, this is
So,
east,
within the state of Michigan or within the U.S.?
within the US.
So within the U.S., we're considered to be in the Midwest. So we're kind of in the middle,
Right.
but towards the north. So we're next to Wisconsin and above Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, kind of north of all those. So yeah. So
Interesting.
we
Yeah.
we actually we border Canada on the north. So
Ah, you border Canada. Okay, okay. I would love to
yeah.
visit the US soon. Well,
And where I was gonna say,
yes,
where are you located at?
I am from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia.
Nice. Is
Yes,
that where
yes,
you're
yes.
at right now, currently?
Yes, right now. Yes, as we
Nice.
speak. It's 7:06 p.m. my side. What about your side?
12 hours difference. So it's
Oh,
7.
7:07. Okay,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
that's better because I've had guests 16 hours behind, so that's it's a bit of
Yeah.
a juggle.
So it's at the end of your day, and I have my morning coffee here, right?
Right.
So
I have my this is plain water, but I would be drinking tea. So cheers at night.
cheers.
So yes, Ryan. I think we can start. Shall we start?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
All right. Okay.